homeschoolers at Wayland Baptist University. A recent study conducted by Cynthia Dronowski and Isaiah Cohen surveyed 185 college students. The study represented students from a traditionally educated background, as well as homeschoolers. The results indicated that homeschoolers have just as much self-esteem as other students. Homeschoolers suffer less from depression in college and generally perform better academically. I interviewed 3 Wayland students who were homeschooled and asked them their opinions on the results of the study. Their answers reveal that, like any other group of people, homeschoolers are all different. Cold, hard data can only do so much. The real proof is in the pudding. Homeschoolers are often viewed as being socially stunted. Of course, in many cases, both for homeschoolers and traditionally educated students, the source of this idea often comes from the fact that some people are naturally shy. Rebecca Brown is the epitome of the stereotypical college homeschooler. She is quiet, shy, highly intelligent, and extremely studious. She's also aware of her own natural tendencies, some of which are not specifically related to her homeschool experience. Research indicates that homeschoolers have higher self-esteem than others who come to college. Rebecca might disagree. She's also aware of her own academic strengths and weaknesses, including struggles with depression, and agrees with the study that indicates that homeschoolers generally do better academically in college. Rebecca Brown, R-E-B-E-K-A-H. Not exactly sure what is meant by self-esteem, but I think it's possibly somewhat lower than most, though it has increased since coming to college. It has more to do with personality than homeschooling. I have a natural tendency to be very self-critical, and in high school this was particularly pronounced, especially because of what I considered a poor academic performance, at least compared with my older brothers. Achieving more of a separate identity and accomplishments in college has helped, but the inclination remains. Brainstorming out loud with strangers was always uncomfortable, since my personality is more introverted, not necessarily connected with homeschooling. My brother had the same sort of schooling and had no problem with group discussion. As I've got to know my classmates at Wayland and have started to feel like part of the group, it's been better. I have a melancholy temperament. With melancholies, depression is a way of life. But seriously, yes, I've struggled with it about as much as anybody, but it's never been long-lasting, just the usual spasmodic, that was a horrible grade, my academic career is over, arbitrarily feeling isolated sort of thing. Nothing really serious. Not knowing people from previous schooling and consequently feeling like an outsider has been the hardest thing. My high school experience was very different from most people's, and I came to college with a different mentality. Since I was more of a nerd and not constantly around only people about my own age, I was less exposed to the latest trends in pop culture to an extent, and so topics for conversation with other people could be rather limited, which made bonding quickly with other students more difficult. Homeschooling has given me a sense of responsibility, the schoolwork, and a need to take it seriously. Without the distractions of social drama, I was able to focus more on academics, and without as much peer pressure, I could develop my own interests and individuality without feeling that I needed to be one of the herd. David Brasso, a second-year senior at Wayland, is double majoring in English and music. He is an example of a person who breaks the stereotype of the wallflower homeschooler. Though not a social butterfly, David has plenty of friends and has no trouble with the social aspect of college. Instead, David struggles with balancing his higher-than-average intelligence with his natural tendency to procrastinate. Nothing can be generalized, according to David, including himself. I definitely feel like I have a higher self-esteem than my peers, possibly because of homeschooling. In general, homeschoolers have a higher sense of internal motivation. In contrast, the public school system encourages being average and utilizes external motivation rather than fostering students learning to self-motivate. Once out in the real world, this is detrimental to success and consequently self-esteem. I like to feel that when I've done well, it's because I worked hard rather than it being handed to me. Many students do just want it handed to them and don't know how to handle it when this doesn't happen. I, of course, know for a fact that many homeschoolers don't succeed, and many public school students do. It has more to do with the work ethic that has been instilled in the student, usually by the parents, rather than the specific mode of education. Hard work translates into success, and while in general homeschoolers are usually encouraged to have a better work ethic, there are many exceptions. Related to myself, I think I'm an example of both. I was indeed raised to have a good work ethic, to expect high standards from myself, and to do my best, so yes, I have tended to put more effort forward than most of my peers, often being labeled an overachiever, as if that's a bad thing. At the same time, being quite smart, I can sometimes be lazy, and I don't get by on my smarts. I have a hard time coping. This is probably how I've struggled most. I did not have a very structured homeschooling experience and did not learn very good time management or self-discipline skills. With the freedom of college came the responsibility to manage myself. It also brought hard and fast deadlines I'd never had to deal with before. I have found this to be the hardest difference, more than packed classrooms, lectures, taking notes, and the many other differences commonly cited as causing difficulty. Jessica Martinez exudes confidence, quiet confidence. Her personal experience indicates that indeed the homeschooler has just as much, if not more, self-esteem than her public school counterpart. Jess's confidence confirms every aspect of the Dranowski-Cohen study. She excels in her studies and has no extraordinary struggles with depression. Even her biggest problem with being a college homeschooler, being too far ahead of the game, is evidence of her self-assured personality. When it comes to self-esteem, I have always felt I was just as confident as my publicly educated peers. In fact, being homeschooled gave me a skill many of them lack. I grew up being around mainly adults, which gave me the ability to confidently and respectfully converse with them. I feel this is lacking in those who spend their days solely around their peers simply because they are not exposed. An area I often lack in, though, is relating to my peers. This is not because my parents did not associate me with peers my own age, but just because I grew more comfortable around adults. Yes, I believe that the stereotypical homeschooler is more likely to succeed in college academics than others. The reason for this is that most homeschoolers, including myself, are self-paced. I only consulted my mother in my studies when I didn't understand a specific subject. For the most part, I learned from books, and I developed a sense of initiative. I was able to look at my academics and see what areas I needed to improve in and motivate myself to do so. Many public educated students are not used to having to self-motivate. They have their teachers and parents holding their hand through most of their educational career. When they enter the collegiate environment where they're expected to do their homework and studies with less one-on-one motivation from teachers, they often struggle. This is where they begin to fail assignments that were easy for them in high school simply because they lack the self-motivation. Another element that affects public school students versus homeschool students is I feel the homeschoolers have better class attendance habits. This is because, at least it was like this for me. Class went on, rain, sun, blizzard, or sickness. Unless I was on my deathbed or our house was on fire, school continued. I didn't have the ability to tell my parents I was going to school and then skip classes to go to the mall, or whatever kids do these days. Public school students, especially those from a town big enough to have a truancy officer, feel like college means freedom. No one is making you go to class, and they forget the adverse effects this habit has on their grades. This does by no means mean that homeschoolers always attend their college classes. I have skipped a handful of classes as well, but generally speaking, this is true. Homeschoolers are generally more emotionally developed than their public school counterparts. College is a time of self-searching for most, and those who are in public school often become lost in finding themselves. Homeschooled students have generally gone through this developmental stage of self-discovery still at home. This means that when they get onto college campuses, they are more secure in whom they are and ready to focus on the collegiate experience. I have never really struggled with being homesick, not because I'm close to my family. They are my best friends. I often see my public school friends as the ones suffering from being homesick, which confuses me since most of them are from Texas. I am from 22 hours away in Twin Falls, Idaho, and I only get to visit home during Christmas. I'm not sure if this has to do with me just being an independent personality or if it is a direct result of me being homeschooled. The hardest thing for me being a homeschooler in college is that often, especially in my core courses, I feel like I'm too far ahead. Since I'm so used to self-motivating and just getting the work done as quickly as I can, I forget to wait for the professor's instruction and just assume the best way to do it. I am learning that professors have valuable opinions and want to help me as much as they can. I think the biggest advantage I drew from being homeschooled is that I now feel confident in my studies and I know that I can motivate myself to get the work done. I also feel homeschooling helped me to develop a sense of initiative, and that has helped me in my extracurricular involvement here at Wayland.